A show intro so good, you got to play it twice. Good morning, PT Breakfast Club. Dave Kittle, I'm Jimmy McKay. Tony Maritata will be jumping in shortly. This Tuesday feels like a Monday. I'm on the struggle bus right now this morning. Dave, how are you doing?
I'm feeling great. What's going on? What's wrong?
I did a conference this weekend, so I was like away, which is like used to be my normal. But now I'm just like, it takes me a day or two to recover. I did the AMPT conference. We did PPS 2 weeks ago. Then I took a 2-week break and did the AMPT conference. Have you ever been to any of those like specialty conferences like that? No, you never done PPS?
PPS, yeah, twice. Not AMP.
Tony, what other conferences have you been to?
For physical therapy? None. That was the PPS was the first one ever.
See, I could see you guys as like get in there and mix
conference
it up.
bros.
Yeah. I mean, we were introduced. It was like really hammered on us in PT school to like test those, at least go to one. But I also went to PT school like in the DC area where a lot of like APTA stuff was. So for us, it was almost like normal. It was like just around.
Yeah. PT school was a formality for me. I showed up as many times as I had to show up to get the letters after my name.
Right.
Outside of that, I was done.
Gotcha. What do you guys want to talk about this morning? I have a LinkedIn post that I wanted to share. And this is something we've talked about before in terms of what people are looking for. And this one like popped off. That's when I know it's like sort of like resonating with people. And this is like, we've had this conversation before where PTs are looking for non-clinical jobs. And I'm always like, hey, what are you actually looking for? So what this means,
I've got a quick question. Is it burned out, like burned ED, or is it burnt like NT? I never know.
I feel like it could be either. Right?
Dave?
Burned out?
I feel like you could flip a coin, and either way, you're probably not burned out or burnt out. I mean,
the idea is
a whole bunch of things. I'm going to try to be nice today. I told Tony in the pre-interview, I'm going to try to be professional about it. But anyway, we can get into it.
All
okay,
right.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
So the idea here is, PTs are burned out. They're experiencing burnout. That's the way you go around it, right? You just say they're experiencing burnout. And we see like I feel like 2 or 3 posts a week of people like posting anonymously, which I know Dave loves, looking for these non-clinical roles. So it's funny because like people are like, I want to stay in the profession, but I don't want to do the thing that the profession's based around, and I want to make the same amount of money, if not more, and I want to have a better schedule. And then I'm like, they're like, do these jobs exist? That's like the question. Like, where do I find these jobs? Do these jobs exist? And I'm like, I want to do that Buzz Lightyear meme. Do you guys know the Buzz Lightyear meme where it's like, yes, non-clinical jobs are everywhere. Like they're anything except in the clinic. So, but what you're actually saying, what these posts are actually saying is, I want a clinically adjacent job. Like, what can I do so I still feel like I'm in the profession? And that's like utilization review, case management. By the way, isn't like utilization review the thing we bitch about like all the time? Like someone saying like, oh, you're not approved for this. Like, how do I go become a stormtrooper? Yeah. Like, how do I go be the thing?
It's a terrible job. Absolutely. Say it how it is.
Right. I mean, I assume, right? Like that's like the other side, someone reviewing someone's care and saying like, you're approved for 2 visits when a week ago you were saying I wanted 10. So anyway, my whole point with this post was like, take a look inside. What are you actually frustrated with? I'm not saying clinical care can't burn you out. It can. There are lots of different ways to deliver clinical care. That's what I'm sort of trying to do with the new series on our podcast, which is like, let's look at all these different business models. I would love to show 1,000 different business models, right? That guy, Chris Corner, the Corner Office podcast is great. Like, I feel like that dude finds a new business under literally every rock and leaf. In fact, I bet you he has a rock removal business or a firewood business. But that's sort of what I wanted to highlight with this post. And it resonated with a lot of people positively and negatively, people on both sides of the fence. And I was really just saying, like, if you're looking for this non-clinical role, like what will actually make you happy? If you're burnout, frustrated, or feeling unfulfilled, swapping one thing for another so you can sort of keep one foot in the profession isn't going to actually get the job done. So I do feel for these people. I'm not mocking them, but what I'm saying is like taking a step into a clinically adjacent role might not actually do the thing you're looking for. So I know it sucks, but you have to start with like self-reflection. What do you want your day to look like? Like, so I don't know. I put that out there to get a whole bunch of traction on LinkedIn.
I think there's a couple forces and factors. And of course, I mean, I always am curious to hear what Tony has to say about it. But before COVID, we didn't really hear this as much. There were Facebook groups. There were Facebook groups available. Maybe there's more Facebook groups now. We know that or at least I believe, there's a lot of negative sentiment in a lot of these Facebook groups. Sometimes right on and makes sense, and sometimes I think a little exaggerated or far-fetched. In my opinion, a lot of the folks that want to get out of healthcare or get out of physical therapy or whatever, we went through COVID. A lot of their friends, neighbors, cousins were able to work from home. They want that. They want the ability to make $100,000, treat 3 telehealth patients a day or something, and have Mondays and Fridays off. Like I think that's one of the big forces. You got, if you think I'm wrong, fine. Let's talk about it. But there's these changes now. Of course, if you have the productivity and all that, and you're not being compensated, of course, then go on Indeed, go talk to PT Match, go to other places, at Headhunters, whatever, find other jobs, other opportunities. Maybe you have to relocate, whatever. But I think a lot of this is around COVID, the shakeup of healthcare with COVID. Some organizations and health systems maybe didn't, would just continue to pound the productivity, maybe is not praising and recognizing the team members. Maybe there is a bad culture and they need to get out of that. But it doesn't make sense to me to like completely leave the profession and go do utilization review or whatever. Like, that is crazy to me when you went to school for what you went to and you wanted to do that. But I don't know, like, Tony, what's going on here?
What's Jimmy going to say?
I was going to say, if you're going to go do utilization review, go become an interior decorator, go become a jet pilot. Like, if you're going to take a step away, why are you taking a quarter of a step away? Go jump. Right. So if you dislike it enough to leave, jump, like really jump.
Yeah, I think it's confusion. It's you don't know, you had this vision that you were going to be fulfilled, getting into therapy and helping people, and then you get there and you're not fulfilled. I think the complaints about overproduction isn't really the right target of your frustration, because if you love what you're doing, you're gonna overproduce. Like, yeah, if you're enjoying what you're doing, you're gonna do more of it. I think you just get there, and the reality is you find patients aren't as willing as you want them to be to do the things you want them to do to improve. And so this is the root of my conversation with Dave all the time. It's like Dave is seeing patients that are paying hundreds of dollars, doing all this stuff because they want to improve, they want to get better. I tend to see patients who are willing to come if it's covered by insurance, and that's about it. And they're not coming to me for the things that I want them to come to me for. And that's okay. I'm comfortable with that. I can deliver a solution that addresses their desires. Like Jimmy said, I agree. Like, why in the world would I want to just take a half step out, stay in those horrible, like, circles of people that are frustrated, that aren't happy? Like, utilization reviewers don't love life. Why not? I talked to my kid the other day. I'm like, look, I think don't go to college, become a plumber. We were Googling, what do I need to become a plumber? I said, pick a trade job that pays you hundreds of dollars. Pick the easiest aspect of that trade. So I said, don't become a painter. We paint our house a lot. We paint the rooms. Don't paint because everybody looks at the walls and they will see every imperfection in the paint. Be a plumber, be an electrician, do things that nobody sees. They just get the end result. The lights turn on, the water, the toilet flushes, and do the easiest thing. Charge $300 to fix a leaky toilet that won't stop leaking, and don't do anything else. Fill your bank account with money, and then go out and do other things that you might be more passionate about. So I just think that they thought, hey, I'm going to go treat a bunch of people. I'm going to change lives. I'm going to help geriatrics stay in the home longer. And you realize that's not what they're looking for. And you're not getting paid enough to deal with the frustration of trying to help someone who doesn't want your help.
I help organizations, launch podcasts and things like that. And I was talking to someone this weekend at the AOMT conference. They said, hey, why does it take so long for us? You lay out a process on this dry erase board, and then we go do it, and then it never works as smoothly as we think it could or should. And I said, do you want the real answer or the answer you're paying me for, right? How about the one we're paying you for? Well, we've got to opt the one you're paying me for. We've got to optimize the systems to match the expectations, blah, 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 blah. And I said, you want the real answer? They go, yeah. I go, because people are involved. People make things messy, right? And in therapy and in healthcare, it's people. It's people on people on people on people. And you have to like sort of know going into, yes, it probably could go smoother or easier or faster or more fulfilling. But the issue is people. Every time you run into a person in a process, there becomes more friction. And you have to, I think as soon as you understand that and you can take a breath, it becomes a little more frustrating. As soon as you accept that, you could understand it, but not accept it. I think as soon as you accept that this is not easy and you're probably not getting paid for how frustrating it might be until you accept it and put yourself in the position, in a role, in a place that you're like, okay, I am equally compensated for my time, right? I think that's really it.
So let's try to provide something of value to anybody watching. Yesterday, I shared with you guys a screenshot of a post from Meredith Caston's group. This was a person who was a therapist for like 30 years or longer, has all of this, great knowledge, great history, doesn't want to do patient care, but has been looking for a job, can't find a job. And they were like, what am I doing wrong? And so from my perspective, now, of course, you only get half the story. We have no idea. Like, is this person looking for a non-clinical job that still pays $100 an hour? Is this, there were a lot of stipulations in here. It's too small for me to see. Can one of you guys read that?
Yeah. And one of your speakers is a little loud, so we're getting some feedback. But here's the post. I need advice and encouragement, please. I'm a bit frustrated with my job search. My background: 30 years PT with a DPT and CHCM. What is that? What is CHCM?
No idea.
I'll find that later. I'll Google that. Experience includes former private practice owner, manager at top hospital, EBP project manager, clinical reviewer, auditor since 2017. At this stage in my life, I just need a part-time remote non-clinical and preferably 1099 job to pay basic living expenses until I retire. How does one explain this in cover letters and interviews without sounding unmotivated? Yeah, don't do that. That isn't it. I keep getting you're overqualified.
You don't put it in a letter or you don't put it in a cover letter. What you would do, so this individual is a previous practice owner. That means you have been out there. You probably had some challenges. You probably have thicker skin. You've seen a lot of the world, how the world works, all that. Okay, here's one tip. Tony said, hey, let's try to provide value. Here's what I would do. Contact business owners like me, Tony, maybe Jimmy, I don't know. Contact them and say, hey, Tony, what's your biggest challenges right now? You don't want to hire a full-time physical therapist, or, I see you're doing a lot of this content around this Biodex treadmill. Like, you just contact, cold message on LinkedIn, website, email, whatever, find it, Facebook, wherever. Contact people. You want it to be virtual? You want it to be non-clinical? You just contact whoever. Like, I don't know. The thing is that the person doesn't even know what they want. So if you don't know what you want, but you know your skill set, and you're looking for, a W-2, whatever. So there's a lot of things in here. You contact local business owners. Maybe it's healthcare, maybe it's not. And you just ask those local business owners, those managers, clinic directors, whoever, hey, I'm just, I have this skill set. This is my, brief background. I know you don't really care about that. I'm curious, what's going on in your world? What's your biggest challenge? What is your biggest burden or issue? And then it's like, oh, well, have you tried this? Have you tried that? I actually have some history or expertise or skill in this, or, oh, your biggest challenge is, I don't know, let's say Jimmy, what's your biggest challenge? You have with Vestibular First, would you need someone to help with the research side, the physical product side, the sales side, finding prospects? Someone has to do is just ask questions,
right?
And see if your skill set can help solve that problem for someone, and they'll probably pay you for it.
Yeah, I think what Dave said, which is go somewhere you'd think you'd already want to be, or do you know someone you really want to be around with, right? Because that's what we've talked about a lot of times, which is how do you know a job situation is great is like you get excited because of the people you work with. A lot of times it really doesn't even matter what you're doing. It does within, but like it's like, hey man, I would hang out with you guys even if we didn't get paid. We don't get paid for this. So yes, which is people need to unlearn and stop reading posts like that. Not because I think they're bad, but I think it leads to limiting outcomes, which is let me just go for a clinically adjacent. They're not looking for non-clinical jobs. They're looking for clinically adjacent jobs. I need you to start looking for a non-clinical job if you don't want to be in the clinic, or look for a different clinic, look for a different setting. My goal with that new series is to show, and I think I'm recording another episode today, 1,000 different models that you can provide this thing.
Yeah, so. and I would say to me that sounds, and somebody had shared this in one of the comments, I think, that sounds more like the role for a consultant, for a project manager. You know, when I think of something like that, and I can relate to that person who's writing that post, they're looking for a air quotes part-time job for, I guess, the stability, the consistency, but they want the freedom of independence and consulting and something like that, project management. So I had shared a post asking the question, if you could get 30% more per year, but be a contractor for 2 or 3 organizations versus take a lower salary and be a consistent 40-hour-a-week employee, a lot of people shared their example of they're already doing that, PRN, travel, like, but with that comes a level of, okay, I'm not going to have the consistency. There's going to be some weeks where I make nothing. There's going to be some weeks where I make a ton. And I think if I'm answering a job post, I'm already at a position where I am asking for help. I'm the job seeker. The employer is solving my problem. I have extra hours to sell. The employer is buying those hours at a discount. Whereas if I'm selling consultative services, expertise, I'm solving the clinic owner's problem, they're going to come to me expecting to pay a premium, you know? And so I think it's a mindset shift of there probably isn't the job you're looking for unless you're going to do it for $12 or $15 an hour. You know, if you're going to do that, you'll get a part-time job somewhere. But if you need to make $30, $40, $50, $100 an hour, you're going to be a consultant, you're going to be a coach, you're going to be a leader. And if you want the freedom, then you have to also be able to kind of dictate and create the schedule.
Hips and shoulders, right?
Well, and that's something that Jimmy said maybe a few weeks ago or months ago. Do you remember we covered this a little bit, Jimmy? And Jimmy, you said something. It's one of my favorite quotes this whole year on the show. It was something around like, it was something around someone like this. We covered a post similar to this a while ago. And it was something like, I want this, I want this, I want this, but I want it on my schedule. Do you remember that?
Maybe. I don't know.
And anyone that's watching or listening, just rewind back to what Tony just said. It's like, you have to know, like, that's why I'm saying, like, go solve their problems. Ask them what their challenges are, because they'll be more likely to pay you like a little bit better of a rate, or like Tony said, a premium rate. But if you're reaching out to them and they have this, you know, these tasks or whatever whatever the role of the job is, then yeah, they're going to just base it off of like market rate, and it's probably going to be a lower dollar amount per hour.
Yeah. Hi, Cynthia, watching from Rockwall, Texas. I said this a couple of weeks ago to students when I did a live event at Nazareth College. We did like a Zoom thing. And I've said hips and shoulders. Do you guys remember that? It's like the shoulder has the most flexibility in any joint, but not some stability, but not a ton, right? So bunch of flexibility. You're a consultant, or you're a hired gun, or you're doing whatever you want. So there's a lot of mobility, but not a lot of stability. And the hip, the most secure joint in the body, like bam, tons of stability, some mobility. So nothing says you can't have a full-time hip job, but then also on the side get a shoulder job. And maybe you start with that shoulder job as the side and it grows. But before you look at the flexibility and how it gets done, decide if these are the problems you like to solve. Decide if these are the things you want to get out of bed to do. Because look, man, I was a PT for 2.5, 3 years after going to school for 3 years. That math doesn't math. I could still be in the clinic. I wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't. So I lucked out because I was able to do something in the profession that also was like parallel, wasn't really adjacent. I didn't just say like, where's the realization review application? but decide what sort of thing you want to do and then figure out how to do it. The last thing I'll say is people don't pay you to do stuff. People pay you so they don't have to do that stuff, right? Like I could have replaced my gutters, but I paid a company like $800 or $1,000 to do it because it needed to be done because I was going to start to like, wood rot or something. I could have done it, but it would have taken me like 10 times as much. I would have bought way too much material and screwed up, and I would have been pissed off. I paid them not to do my gutters. I paid them so I didn't have to do my gutters. Start to wrap your head around that.
Yeah. Yeah. There, you had said something also that I was thinking about, but if you guys have another topic, I got lost. I forget what I was going to say.
Well, I'll talk about the AAMS conference while you think. Go ahead.
Yeah, please.
Let me just go back to the hips and the shoulders thing, right? So Jimmy gave the example, the hip has less range of motion, right? But more stability. And then the shoulder has more degrees of freedom, more range of motion, and therefore less stability. So let's just put a few words to that. The excessive range of motion or the freedom of the shoulder would be like you have like this PRN job and like, but then there's instability of your overall hourly. Like Tony just said a few minutes ago, there might be some weeks where you make more, some weeks where you make less. And then if you want the stability of the hip, the fixed salary or a fixed salary plus whatever productivity, whatever, then that might be a little bit lower because you're banking on the stability component of the whole dynamic instead of the freedom where you can just work from home 3, 4, 5, whatever days per week. So those are the trade-offs. There are trade-offs to all this.
You can have cake or you can eat cake. You don't get to have cake and eat cake. But how do you eat cake if you don't have cake? I never understood that analogy.
Cake, burnt out.
Real quick analogy.
Why didn't we see videos from the conference, Jimmy? Where are the lives?
What's that?
Where are the lives? Why didn't we see videos from the conference?
Yeah, we were doing a lot of recording. So I've been helping AAMS with their podcast, and I did, I think, 19 episodes in a day and a half or 2 days. So you'll see and hear a lot. But we wanted it to, like insufficient Wi-Fi. It's good, it's not good. So I just went the full record way. But there's a book that I think I'm going to read, and it's called Member Shift. Now, I did take the cheap route, which is I went to ChatGPT and I said, hey, pretend you're the author of this book, and I'm going to ask you questions. And I got a lot out of it. I got so much out of it that I want to read the actual book. But what I've noticed over conferences, especially like in AAMT or AAMT, American Academy of Orthopedic Manual Physical Therapists, like if you go to their conference more than once, I went when I was a student, or maybe I just graduated back in 2016, 2017, and then I went last weekend. I saw the same people. I saw only the same people, and that's not a knock on them. And those people are constantly beating the drum to say, we have something of value. Come join us. Come join us. Come join us. Come join us. But I got to be honest, if I were to go there as a new grad or someone who is like, okay, it's intimidating because there are so many of these like people who've been doing it for 15 or 20 years. It doesn't even matter what they do. They've been doing it so long. And this is the first year that I've been recording podcasts and videos for them. And I've received a lot of good feedback, some really great compliments, which makes me feel good. But I don't think it's necessarily me. I think it's the fact that they started communicating outside of their one conference or their town halls or their emails, which is the lesson is if you reach people in places that you're not reaching them, they'll feel welcome. This is the basics, right? Some people are like, oh my gosh, I've been listening to your podcast for a couple students. Some of the professors who are like leadership in this organization brought students, and they're like, oh yeah, I was able to sort of like dip a toe and not dive right into giving up a weekend, right? Or becoming a member to this thing. And then the membership's going by at 10,000 miles an hour, because you have to remember something. A patient who's been at your clinic for 6 months or a patient who's been there on their first day, they're experiencing this differently. And the same is for members. The same is for employees. You can't speak to those people about the same topics in the same way. You've got to slow it down and break it down, not dumb it down, slow it down and break it down for people who are on their first day and the person who's on their 10,000th day. And the juggle is, how do you do that consistently? And that's create content for those individual people. I'm talking about, this is why so much effort and money it goes into onboarding people, because we understand if the onboarding experience doesn't match expectations, dude, this feels sketch. I'm gonna dip out. I feel like the generation now that's getting jobs is willing to bail faster if they don't like the vibes, if they get the ick, I'm using all the buzzwords here, kids. They're willing to bail, and that will cost you money. So I was looking at AMP, like, what could they do better? And I think whatever they do for those people, it wouldn't be the same people from 2016 to this weekend if they didn't do something. But they all have a strategic goal to grow. And I say the answer is slow it down, break it down, don't dumb it down, but understand who your audience is. And I think organizations are finally catching up. I very rarely have to like pitch myself if I'm like creating content for people, for organizations. I very rarely need to be like, okay, so here's why you need to create. They're past that. I think it's 2024. They're like, yeah, everything's everywhere. How come we don't have that? I'm like, well, the best time to plant a tree for shade was 20 years ago, and the second best time is right now. And the final thing I'll say about this is the expectation setting. You guys dropping 3 episodes of a podcast or 5 videos isn't going to get it done because the world is moving at the speed of swipe. So table stakes now. I feel pretty confident. If you're an organization of more than 100 people, table stakes is creating video content or audio content and social content on a regular basis. What are your thoughts on that? To me, that's table stakes.
Dave?
Yeah, need to be doing it. Absolutely. Why not?
Dave, what's your like content generation framework or model, or do you have any like specific goals or things that you try to do? You've got the YouTube channel, the LinkedIn, you're in multiple places, Twitter. How do you approach content generation to get the word out about either your practice or what you're doing?
It's kind of like a pray and spray model. Just like I've been on a bunch of these platforms. I think I do need to delegate and outsource. Starting in a week or two, my wife and I, we're gonna be hiring and starting with our first cleaning person here. I cannot wait. So in our place, in our apartment, cannot wait. So I also need to delegate the actual physical posting of the post now, because you can't schedule on Facebook and you can't schedule posts on some platforms. Twitter you can, LinkedIn you can, but arguably the post gets throttled down because they know it's like an artificial post. So my content strategy is like also, frequency is important, but then we talked about it recently in the past week or two. Like I don't know, like we've been around enough with social media, like we kind of know what's going to get attention. So even like, I don't know if you saw, like I posted our business card. Did you see this post on Facebook or LinkedIn?
No.
So I posted like a digital image of our business card, and it's a little, it's busy. It's got like a lot of extra words and, the treatments, and I got a ton of, it says like, hey, therapy colleagues, can you give me some feedback on our business card? Something like that, ? And, it's got a lot of words on it. It's got, neuro rehab, sports medicine, whatever, joint, muscle, bone, tendon, like all, just too many things. And the treatments, like I got feedback, treatments should be on the back, whatever. The whole point of it though, is I knew it was going to get comments. I even got one negative comment on Facebook. We don't have to pull it up, but someone was like, I don't even know if this guy's a practice owner, but the negative comment was like, hey, if it's that hard to sell concierge services, then I think you need to like take insurance or get better referrals or get better patients or whatever. And I was like, oh, wow. I was like, so I chirped back a little bit, but anyway, are you pulling it up? There we go. So yeah, therapy colleagues, can I get some feedback on this business card? It's a little busy, right? So I welcomed feedback. I'm, putting myself out there. We have printed this one, but like I got a ton of feedback. There's no QR code. There's too much black. There's too much words. Put the treatments on the backside. Remove the treatments. I knew, guys, I don't know if you realize this. You're both smart enough to realize this. I put this out there because I know what's going to get comments and engagement. And some people are going to be like, oh, here's what mine looks like. And everyone believes that they're right. And, my feedback is the best. And here's my insight. And here's my experience. And I would change this. I would change this. I would change this. Now, I actually got real feedback. But my content approach is putting things out there that I assume are going to catch some attention. It's going to be different than what you're seeing in the algorithm when you're scrolling. And so a lot of this, as you know, is kind of, it historically has been around partnering and trying to buy practices and the Dave Kittle Show and all that. And then also now recently I've been posting a little bit more of like the hiring stuff and, selfies with patients and clients and all that. So I want to show, just like a lot of other successful practices out there, I want to show what it's like to be a therapist with us, right? So like Josh Funk, who was on my show before, I think he just opened like his 11th clinic or something, like in the DMV area. Yeah. He's doing incredible. And he puts out a lot of content showing like what the therapists are doing, you know, treatment wise, or showing exercises or drills. And we all think like that's just to attract patients, right? And he's like, not really. It's actually to attract the right therapist. And I was like, oh my gosh. So in the next, 6 months or so, you're definitely going to see more of that from us, from me, from my team, whatever, delegating it, putting out content like Tony is, like, your patients on the Biodex treadmill, you're strapping them up to the overhead harness. So we're going to be putting all that out there organically on Facebook, LinkedIn, maybe start another YouTube channel. But I mean, I need help to do all that, right? So that's my content strategy, is like putting a lot out there. At the same time, now we're running Facebook ads for the patient-facing practice for concierge pain relief. I have that guy Joe Lowell who reached out to run Facebook ads. That's interesting. We could talk about. But anyway, that's a lot of my approach with social media.
Yeah. But I think you're less pray and spray, right? Like, because you're testing things. Pray and spray would just be like continually just do more and different, and not look at what's working and what's not working. And you don't do that. You pay attention to what is and isn't working. And you also put thought into it. I mean, I've worked for places who are like, they would turn to the social media team and be like, hey, do this now. And they're like, dude, you don't understand. Like, this isn't rocket science, but like, you're all over the place and I can't even follow what I'm supposed to be doing. So I've actually in the last like 5 or 6 months probably done less and had the same, if not better, results by doing less, because the 80-20 rule applies, right? You guys are familiar with the 80-20 rule, right? 20% of your efforts get 80% of your results. And then you can flip it. 80% of your results get 20% of your efforts. This is why like Tim Ferriss's 4-hour work week is, number one, a best-selling book, but number two, like if you focused on that 20% that got the 80% results, you'd do less but get more, and then you'd have more time to think about what else can go into that. But here's the funny part. Let me know if you guys think this is true. It's true for me. Have I ever talked about Disney's low ride out theory with you guys before? So Disney's low ride out, like you've been to Disney World, you pay one price and you go into it, so every ride's free, right? Then why at every ride does it have that 3-pronged turnstile-y thing? Why is that there? Well, that's a counter, right? That's counting who rides what rides. We know how many people came in, and we know how many times rides got ridden. Rides got ridden. PTs got burnt out. You're doing market research in person. You're voting with your time, because Disney only has so many acres in Florida. If they want to put a new ride in, if that new Star Wars ride wants to go in, something's got to go. So they could do market surveys. Oh, which ride did you like the most and least? But nostalgia would play a part. No, don't get rid of teacups. That's our favorite ride. But the lowest ride in the count is out, because if we don't start replacing some of this, we're going to stagnate. We're going to be old. So the idea is, whatever you're doing, you only have a finite amount of time, like Disney did real estate. Whatever efforts you're doing, it's finite unless you start hiring people, but then you need to manage those people, and that's part of your tasks, right? So pay attention to what that 20% actually is, the 20% of stuff that brings the 80% results. And sometimes you might have to kick some things out or delegate them, right? Pay for that. And that if you have the resources to do that. So I think paying attention to those things is simple, but it's emotional, because now I do this, and this has always been what I do. This is how I do this. So getting over the emotion of being able to kick some of those things out.
Let's talk about that. And I don't remember if it was the podcast you mentioned, the Corner Office podcast, or if it was Greg Eisenberg. But they were talking, I turned my volume down. I don't know why we're still getting feedback.
I don't know.
They were talking about AI, about facial recognition, about artificial intelligence. They were talking about retail stores, where what if you had a retail store where the customer came in, you had a facial recognition system in place, so you recognize the customer, and even if you anonymize the information, but customer A, customer B, customer C, you track them through the store, you find areas of congestion within the store, you find where people are buying things in the store, not buying things in the store, and you change the layout of the store. I was talking to my son last night, and we were like, why don't we have facial recognition in EMRs right now? I was sitting in the clinic. So my PTA he's in Pittsburgh. He was watching the Steelers game last night. I stepped in to take over his caseload yesterday and today. There were patients that came in that I have no idea who they are. I know they're patients, but I can't quite tell. And I'm embarrassed to say, what's your name? Because they know me because I did their evaluation. And so usually I will go into the EMR, I'll pull up the copy of the driver's license, I'll look at the face on the driver's license and compare it to the face of the person in front of me, and I'll figure out who this is. But from a facial recognition perspective, and I know it's a little freaky, like think of where this could go. Okay, so coming in the door, facial recognition pulls up the patient chart. The ambient listening, which we already have, records and hears the conversation of, hey, how'd you do? How was the weekend? How'd you feel with your sit to stands and other things? It's listening to the patient's conversation. It's creating the clinical documentation based on what is said, based on the history in the medical record that's already in the EMR. And then if we had this kind of tracking system, which there were versions of this for 20 years, like the little barcode on your gym membership, you swipe it when you come into the gym, they know you're there. But the video surveillance where it's like, okay, now patient A is sitting on the recumbent bike. They did 10 minutes. They said this after they got off the bike. Like, is that the future of clinical documentation?
I think so.
To summarize all that, literally taking all of the, time off the clinician's shoulders, because that information, that data is there and it can be captured with the technology we have today. What do you guys think about something like that?
I was helping to put on a conference, and this is like 4 or 5 years ago. And this was the crazy idea back then, because I couldn't even wrap my head around artificial intelligence or facial recognition. Because again, it was 5 or 6 years ago. Like, that's how far we've come. Now it's commonplace. Now it's how I unlock my phone.
Right? Yeah.
And the cool part about this conference was you had to pay a lot of money for this. So as you walked into the conference, you're walking down this runway, right? They had this cool, like almost like a marathon finish line, right? Like an arch that you'd walk towards. And it was all digital readouts. They were just TV screens, right? But 100 yards before that is when you got your badge with a giant QR code on both sides, right? Then 50 yards before the archway was a reader that was just constantly scanning QR codes. So by the time you walked through the arch, it was like, welcome, Jimmy. Thanks for coming all the way from New York. Jimmy McKay from this company, and your picture would flash up there and whatever. So it was like marking who you were to make that personalized walk through the arch experience. Dude, that was like 6 years ago, and I'm still like talking about that. But would you even need the QR code reader anymore? Would it just scan my face and do the exact same thing? Could you customize the experience for every single person who walks through the door? The people who figure out how to do that first, best, cheapest are going to be the ones who win. How great would that be? I mean, that's why you go to Cheers, right? Everybody knows your name.
We used to have circuits like exercise equipment that were computerized and would track, how many reps, how much weight you were using. That stuff's been around forever. It's just never really been brought into therapy. Now somebody like Dave isn't going to need something like that because, it's one-on-one. He's in that house.
No cash practice.
But the question would still be like, I know therapists had said, well, why don't we just video record the entire session and submit the video recording to the insurance company? Because that's not what the insurance company is asking us to do. The insurance company is still asking us to summarize what was done, track progress, assess the patient. Just giving them a recording isn't what it is. But now the AI technology exists that if we did do a video recording, not just audio, the AI could analyze what all happened during that recording frame by frame and provide the summary and the assessment.
I'll give you a content parallel, right? I want my reels to go more viral. Like, I record a lot of content, but then I have to sit there and go through it or pay someone who's a good editor, but maybe they don't understand physical therapy or like the nuance, right? So we record everything with the platform we're using right now called StreamYard. That's how we broadcast, and it also records. With that, we get a VTT file, a transcript, right? I take that transcript and put it into ChatGPT, and now it's something that the large language model can manipulate. I can then tell it to act like, guys know who Jenny Hoyos is?
Yeah.
She's like that girl that burst on the YouTube scene. She's like, I can make anything go viral. And she has a formula and she's pretty damn consistent, but she understands the whole process. So I could give right now on October 29th, I could say, here, GPT, here's the transcript, act like Jenny Hoyos and tell me, I don't even care if it's in order. Just, I need those clips to pop off. Make a highlight reel of this episode that's less than 60 seconds. Then I still got to go in there and track with okay, she said the GPT of Jenny said to go in there at this moment, this moment, this moment. Well, now Descript, you guys familiar with Descript? I know Tony is. Descript essentially lets you edit a video by copying and pasting and moving a Microsoft Word document, for lack of a better term. Could those things just be combined together? Yeah, because I just thought of it, which means someone smarter than me thought of it 6 months ago, and they're already in the works of doing that. So do I think that clinical documentation in healthcare will go this way? Yep, because it's gonna help with speed, and it's gonna help with being able to be reimbursed, do more faster. I think there's a part of the camp there like, no, this feels like an invasion of privacy, and everywhere in society that it feels like an invasion of privacy, as long as convenience and ease is on the other side, we will accept it. Want to know why? I have 9 microphones in my house that Jeff Bezos consensually listened to, right? And these things also have cameras on them. I would never allow that. But you made something easier, and then I not only allow it, but I pay for it. I pay you for it, right? So I think it will. I think the people that adopt it fastest, twofold. I think you're going to make more money, and I think you're going to attract people to tie it up with a bow who want to work that way because they're like, yeah, I want to do this, but not that other stuff that burns me out or I feel burned out by. So make me a better environment. I think utilizing technology is going to be a moneymaker. I think the long-term reason for the investment for technology like this is going to be a recruiting tool, like one of you guys said months ago. I think it's right.
So there's airports already using this. There's something apparently called digital ID. Just had someone tell me about this yesterday.
Oh, at TSA?
So it's different than global entry and TSA. It's like a third bucket now. It's a third lane or whatever. This guy went on Delta from, I think, JFK to Orlando, like recently. Now you have to have, I think he said you have to have global entry and TSA, those two things, and then you have to like sign up for digital ID online or whatever. He walked up to the camera, no boarding pass, no driver's license, anything. Walks up to the camera, it scans his eyes or takes a picture, whatever, and they walk through. You just walk through. So completely, even faster than TSA and TSA at JFK. We've gone through TSA in 3, 4, 5 minutes. It's incredible, and somehow this is faster.
I just went through coming back from AOMT. I went through TSA, but some airports, not Westchester, not where I flew out of, where I flew into, where the hell was I? Orlando. At Orlando, the TSA lane, usually you hand them your ID and you scan your boarding pass. This I didn't have to do either. So maybe it's some of that technology. Like I walked up and she was like, oh, stand in front of this thing. And I was like, okay. And it was like, good, you're good to go. I'm like, you don't need, because I had my boarding pass and my ID ready, like a good traveler. Yeah, but I didn't have to sign up for anything extra. But like Clear was like retinal scans. Like we were like, oh, that's going to be the future. And we sort of skipped retinal scans. Retinal scans were like the mini disc from CDs to MP3s. There was this technology in the middle called mini disc. And I was like, this is going to be everywhere. And it in fact was not everywhere.
So I want to go back to something Dave had mentioned, getting somebody to help clean the house. That is an interesting experience because I can tell you, first world problem. Like I feel embarrassed saying this. We had an amazing lady who would come in. We were only doing, I think, once a month. And, it was when our kids were small, but it was so much work for us to get all of the junk out of her way so that she could do what she needed to do, that the first opportunity we got, we were like, oh, we got to stop doing this. Like, I'm sorry, we can't do this anymore. You think it's going to be the most amazing experience. Somebody's going to come in and do all this stuff, but then you realize you have to do all of this work to get the house ready for them to do what they're going to do.
I don't do it. I
want to hire one of these therapists that wants to do telehealth. They can come and move my sofas, and then the cleaning person can come in. There you go. That's flexibility.
I can't wait for like 3 or 4 months down the road to come back to you and ask you about this. But this is just like in therapy, the person who's like, I don't want to start physical therapy until I lose some weight and get into better shape. You know, like we have this issue across all professional services. You don't go to a financial planner until you're making more money or you clean up your accounts. Like everybody has this self-imposed insecurity. But I will say, like, as amazing as it was to have her working with us, it was equally frustrating to know, she's coming tomorrow morning. We got to get the house clean and ready for her to come so she can do the things she needs to do.
I've had some other colleagues say like, oh my gosh, yeah, like you're gonna love it. Everyone says, oh, I should have delegated it earlier, sooner. And yes, we're doing it, young kid, all that. So it makes sense that you guys tried it when you had younger kids. No one has said that approach, but again, Tony, you're unique, and maybe we're gonna find ourselves in that position, like, oh man, I gotta do this and that, and we have to do all this prep work, whatever. We shall see. I'll let you know.
We loved it after. We're coming back home, like we would leave for 4 or 6 hours, and you come back home and everything smells amazing and everything is cleaner than it's ever been. It's just the prep work to get to the house ready for them.
Yeah, you got to move the big rocks, but you're paying for the small rocks, right? You're paying for her to like, him or her to like, do the scrub, right?
Yeah.
Like I have no problem picking up my clothes and throwing them in a hamper, although I consistently don't do that. So you're paying for the small rocks, ironically, and you can do the big rocks. We got 15 minutes left. I thought we would do like quick updates on the projects we're all working on, because I actually got a few people like saying like, hey, that's kind of cool. Like you guys are building in public, which a lot of organizations do. So Tony, why don't you go first? Like been seeing more videos about Biodex and the reactive step trainer.
Yeah, so right now, in fact, today, one of the guys from Biodex is coming down from Northern Ohio. He's going to get here around lunchtime. We're going to spend the afternoon. I don't have any patients. I cleared my schedule. We're going to create some content. Then he's going to be around tomorrow morning when I'm going to put more real patients on the reactive step trainer. My approach to what I asked Dave for social media was, I was not doing any media on my business Facebook page. I was not doing anything on Instagram. The last Instagram post that I had before I started up this month, let's say, was like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago. So what I'm doing, recording organic content in the clinic. Every patient has a HIPAA compliant media release on file. Every patient is informed. Every patient knows we're recording. I stick the camera in front of their face so they see like, hey, this is what I had you sign that release for. And what I'm doing is I'm finding that balance between real people and real technology, real equipment. So like I have 2 YouTube shorts that I posted over the weekend. One hit 9,000 views, one hit 10,000 views. Like they're doing awesome.
Nice. Posting
on Instagram, I'm averaging like 3,000 or 4,000 accounts reached. I don't know the Instagram metrics that well. Facebook, LinkedIn. So I'm priming the pump, because the next step is, if we do a paid ad campaign, I want the algorithms to already have some information and some content with that.
How long do you think it takes for the algorithm to figure that out? Because I've been doing stuff on YouTube for, I don't know how long I've been doing this for, 8-9 months, 7 or 8 months. I think I'm now starting to see videos that like did nothing. Now I'm starting to see like really steep ups. I'm like, oh, cool, this stuff works. Like, it's funny how I put out a ton of podcast content, do the same on YouTube, get nothing. I'm about to throw a towel. It knows it, and it's probably knows I'm about to quit. And then it's like, boop, all these things are now popping off. How long do you think it knows or takes to know?
I don't think it's a time thing. I think it's a reach thing. So like your YouTube channel wasn't reaching enough people for the algorithm to get enough information. So for you, it took longer time. Now, because of time, it's starting to capture enough data, enough information to make recommendations to people that want to see your content.
Yeah.
Like when I go to my almost 60,000 subscriber channel, I laid off for months. I didn't post anything for months. But it's got enough history and enough data so that when I put something new on, it knows who to put that in front of. And none of us know, we're guessing. But ultimately, I do think it's about, does it have enough iterations and enough information in the system to know who wants to see this piece of content. You know, for bigger reach, it's going to go quicker. For a smaller, newer channel, it's going to take longer. But like I see results within 30 days right now. Like I feel like Instagram is growing. I added subscribers. I'm adding reach. I'm reaching more new accounts. LinkedIn is doing amazing. Like I'm averaging 20,000 impressions a week right now, which has been great. Pinterest is growing. Like all of my socials are up. And you know, I got to think that's because I'm obviously posting more across all the platforms.
Yeah, I had a conversation with this guy while I was at AOMT, like the guy who runs this channel, like admittedly like no video experience when he started. And we had a 30-minute conversation at the bar, just a physical therapist from El Paso. And he's like, now he's got 678,000 subscribers and it totally changed his business. And he's talking, he has listened to the live stream before. I was like, you know, blush, like what, you know, that's, you know, crazy, but going to get him on the show. We had a long conversation and figuring these things out. I also think the lessons that you learn from YouTube are just like good business practice and good communication practice, right? Like he's understanding what his audience is and wants. This goes back to, maybe this is another episode, but I'll prime the pump. Is it our job to give our patients what we think they need or what they come in thinking they want? Or is the answer somewhere in the middle? Like some people were like, if they don't want what I suggest, then they can kick rocks.
Both, but in the order that the patient wants. That's the answer.
I feel like this is a longer discussion. I feel like this is a poll question.
That's a whole other episode.
I feel like this would be a poll question with comments that we could read the comments, because I would have said, you know, when I was a PT student, I would have said, this is my suggestion and I have a degree and and now I'm like, oh.
Did you see my post about it?
No. Do you have one about it?
Yeah. Like this exact situation. I said, do patients really have the right to choose? I said, would you allow them to choose the interventions they get and not get? I said, if you said yes, then, you know, how do you view your role as the therapist?
Maybe this is where I got the conversation from.
I posted this. Let's hear about Dave's projects. What's going on?
You're hiring.
Let's cover that on Thursday, Tony. So two quick things. One is I'm trying to pitch some like membership wellness offering to a practice owner in the city here in New York, maybe red light therapy, maybe hyperbaric oxygen chamber. That's a sidebar. We'll come back to that. What we're focusing on right now, we have two of our clients, two active patient clients right now, and their birthday happens to be today. So my therapist is treating one of them right now. One of my therapists is treating one of them right now. And he woke up early. He said, hey, should we do something? A couple days ago, hey, should we do something for so-and-so because their birthday? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. We're going to, you know, do you want to, let's do it. Let's do a cake, like, you know, assuming they're not like, you know, diabetic or whatever, like, let's do a cake, whatever, you know, send me a picture of the receipt. I'll reimburse you. No problem at all. You know, he sent me a picture of the box. He wrote, you know, nicely on the box. Maybe the, you know, the cake wasn't able to have the icing with the patient or client's name on it. The point of bringing this up really quickly is that we always talk about marketing. We always talk about more new patients and clients. How about the wow experience for your current patients and clients? And if you don't have a business model that allows this, like this guy has spent maybe 10 grand with us, maybe 15 grand already this year. What is a $50 cake? Like, and this is going to probably surprise this guy, this client, positively. And the therapist is going to bring it, and that's going to be a talking point. And, you know, the therapist put his name and my name on the box and all that. And I want to wow my current patients and clients, the folks that already love our experience, our practice, our, you know, value what we deliver, all of that, the human nature of what we offer. And it's only a matter of time until he, like, maybe his wife starts with us, or a neighbor, or, you know, someone in his building, or a friend, or whatever. So that's my little thing for today. That's what we're focusing on, which is currently to reinforce the value and the wow factor of our current patients or clients first, before looking elsewhere and like worrying about these Google and Facebook ads.
Yeah. This is like take care of your house before you go out and play in the neighborhood, right? This is surprise and delight. I've talked about this before. Trying to think of other examples of surprise and delight. Maybe that's a good lesson. I can't think of too many examples of surprise and delight outside of that Peloton example. I don't want to ruin this, but if you have a Peloton bike, when you sign up, you tell them your t-shirt size. And I forgot I did it. But when I hit my 100th ride, I got the Century Club t-shirt, which I got to show off because the shirt's about me and my accomplishments. Yeah, there was a Peloton logo on the shoulder, but there's surprise and delight, which, I mean, what would a cake cost for somebody who dropped 10 grand? Like if you said that to someone, I'm thinking about buying a $15 cake. Well, in New York, $35 cake for someone who spent 10 grand. They'd be like, duh, like, of course you're going to do that. But how often do we overlook that, right? Here's why. We try to scale it too fast. And then we cheap out because you're like, what could I buy 1,000 of? Pens, stress balls, candy. Instead of what are my top 20? What are my top 20 most loyal patients? You know, not screw the rest, but like they're on a different level. So do something differently. I think I think the fact that I can't think of too many other surprise and delight examples other than Peloton is a giant opportunity. And how do you surprise people? The thing I'm working on is at Vestibular First, talked about this, right? These are like diagnostic goggles for now. They're just diagnostic goggles. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But the funny thing is my job is really like talk to practices that are larger, not really to sell one set of goggles, but to sell, 5 or 10 or 20, like across a large practice. I thought I was going to have to deal with price objection or value objection. I'm not dealing with those objections. Do you guys know what objections I would be dealing with? It's not price or value. I think we've talked about this before.
The training, like the therapists need training and
not just, yeah, that's part of it, which is like, cool, I bought these. Now what? Like, how do I set this up? I have clinicians who are super adept in this, super advanced. So I've got to educate, I've got to market. How do I roll this out? So I'm dealing a lot with those conversations where I didn't think that those would be the things that I would have to dip into. And now they are, which is like, I'm not just solving your problem by delivering a set of goggles. If you're a trained vestibular therapist who knows what you're getting into, these goggles solve all that. If you're an organization, you have different problems. So look at that. People and organizations are different and they have different problems. And if you can solve those problems, and this goes into like Tony's soft wave too, that's sort of, we talked about this, which is like, oh yeah, it's not just the soft wave problem. Like where the goggles are working, we have that on lock. Like everything's fine. Soft wave has the therapy. It's everything around that. How do I get it to that moment when the goggles are on? How do I make sure that thing's going to pay for itself times 10? So I get to be like sort of a project manager.
Great to hear that you guys at Vestibular First might be moving into treatment, not just diagnostics. Might. I
don't know about that. Yeah, might be. All right, parting shots for today. What do you guys got?
Real quick, I'm just going to use mine functionally. Cynthia, if you're still here, you put in the comments about being non-PAR. You have to submit the CMS 460 form to become PAR. That's my parting shot. If you missed it, I'll reach out to you. I'll try to find you, track you down, and tell you what you need to do to become PAR.
Dave?
Parting shot. Continue to focus on your current patients or clients. Saying it to myself, even though we're doing with the cake and all that. Focus on that. Surprise and delight, like Jimmy said, before focusing on how do I get more new patients? How do I get more new referrals and all that? Focus on who you already have, who you can reactivate. Send them something, a shock and all package, like some physical package in the mail. You should have their home address. Send them something, like send them, I don't know, here the bouquet of flowers are like anywhere from 25 to 50 bucks. I don't know where you're at, or you got 20 bucks, 30 bucks, whatever. It's nothing. It's nothing to reactivate someone. Send them something physical. Drop it off at their work. Drop it off at their home. I don't know, cookies, something healthy, edible arrangements. That's my parting shot.
There's an app that'll actually do that. It's called Thanks, THNKS. Essentially, you go in there and you're like, it's essentially that. It's like we've got a list of all those things that would make that touch, and we can do that. So you're welcome. I would say 80-20, and I'm guilty. Like I always share the best advice for like what I need to hear. So I need to let some things go and focus more on the 20, right? Focus more on the 20% of my efforts that'll bring 80% of my results. And the only reason I haven't done that is psychology and emotion. We'll be back on Thursday. I do want to say that, hey, that Dana Strauss episode on value-based care that came out yesterday, if you guys want to take a listen to that, we'll be back on Thursday. And what are we going to talk about on Thursday? Really like paying attention to
the role of a therapist. Should therapists do what they believe the patient needs or what the patient wants to do?
The answer is somewhere in the middle. All right. We'll see you guys on Thursday.